Next, we launched out on a vigorous course of action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us have never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. And tonight, Chris from London has kindly come to share his experience and understanding of that. I'll hand you over to Chris.
Thanks, Lenny.
Thanks.
I'm Chris. I'm a recovered drug addict.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
And first of all, thanks very much for inviting me into your group. And Lenny sent me a picture, and it looks like you've got a great kind of cozy setup there. And I wish I was there with you actually. It's but for what it's worth, welcome to my living room here in Caledonian Road near King's Cross, where you're as much part of my evening as anything else is. And I love your format. I love your format, and I take it you've agreed on that, and that's kind of, I found that to be important, to get agreement amongst, if you form a group, agreement amongst yourselves, so you're on the same page, and that sounds really good. And these things develop sometimes, and we have to try and. But I mean, there's one bit from the big book that you use, and it says we've found a way. I forget. I'll paraphrase word for word, but we've found a way on which we can all agree in brotherly, sisterly harmony. Well, I mean that's. I think that's kind of where this deal's come from. This kind of. The little group that I sprung from and that Lenny's been exposed to, and there's little pockets up and down the country of people talking about this stuff. And, going back to one of your other readings, not because we're trying to say, no, we've found something that you haven't got, or, but because we've been led to looking at our own experience and the experience of new people we try and work with, and matching that up with what the book was offering, and and in doing that, we've seen that actually there's been a lot of, I won't say misinterpretation, but there's been a lot of kind of stuff that's happened over the years with the big book. I mean, first of all, every man and his dog knows about a 12-step program now. They've all watched EastEnders and see Grant, and it's my name's so and so, I'm an alcoholic, and so everyone assumes they know what it is. And, more and more people in this day and age have seen it in movies and TV. And then some people have been away to, not been away. Some people have been, which I was, exposed to interventions via, doctors or professionals, sort of drug and alcohol professionals. And some people have been exposed to what they call rehab or treatment, or whatever that form that takes. And so there's a pretty strong consensus around the country that we all know what we're talking about when it comes to have had enough of booze or drugs or both, or whatever it may be, and that's good, except that it seems that my experience is that, see, I got here in 1995, and I'm not saying that because I'm that old. I'm not that old, but I got here in 1995. And when I say got here, I don't mean to Cocaine Anonymous. I certainly don't mean to a big book meeting, but I mean to like initial interventions that did include going away for rehab, and did include me hanging out in meetings, of various fellowships and so 1995, and the reason for that was, I thought at the time, and I had no reason to think, I still have no reason to think I was wrong, was that drugs and alcohol were just building up in my life to cause into continual car wrecks, train wrecks. It was awful. I was I run out of things to blame, really, and and I ran out of things to try and stop it happening again, you know. So I threw myself at what was put in front of me, which, as I say, was interventions, and then I ended up in 12-step fellowship. That was 1995 that started. Between 1995 and the time of my last relapse, which was the 1st of December 2007, I had 4 returns to treatment centres, for different ones, you know. And 3 actually. One was a day thing, you know, but, you know, serious interventions, and spent time really chucking myself at what I thought was 12-step recovery. It was 12-step recovery, you know, and I became an enthusiastic attendee of meetings. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose I got what I was looking back on it, and you know, I got quite kind of spiritual, whatever that means. I developed a prayer life, and I developed I used to hang out with these guys. I went to a meditation meeting, and that, you know. But that was between 1995 and 2007. That would be interspersed with me, you know, using drugs again. By the way, my drugs are no choice. Are cocaine and opiate, heroin. You know, I don't experience this deal that we're going to talk about tonight. I don't seem to experience it around psychedelics, and you know what I mean. I know we say in CA all other mind-altering substances, but you know, I'm of an age group where, you know, every weekend in the 70s, I used to take acid, you know, and I know Lenny would tell you it shows, but I mean, but it's you know, I was mad for it, and then in the 80s, as a, you know, an old raver, I wouldn't go out with MDMA, with ecstasy, no point. But both of those things, you know, if things really go wrong tonight, or I get a bad phone call about my family, or, you know, whatever, if I trip that switch, wherever it is, you won't find me, you know, on Hampstead Heath tripping tomorrow. You won't, you know, and it's not because I've done a 12-step program. It's because the stuff drove me bloody balmy. And I made a conscious decision. I'm not doing that anymore. It frightened the life out of me. You know, I ended up with psychosis from it and all that, you know, and so, you know, it's no problem. I won't do it again. However, you know, that's not been the case with, you know, another reading says the drug of choice, but my drugs of power, if you like, it isn't like that with stimulant and opiate. It's I've relapsed with that when there's been no good reason. And you know, I know I've had the same backstory with that as I had with the horrible things that happened with psychedelics. You know what I mean? And yet, you know, I've gone again, as I say, 3-4 times between 95 and 2007. Something happened to me in 2007, which is, and I don't know anyone in the room that does know me. I know Lenny, but something happened to me in 2007, which. I don't make it sound melodramatic or anything like that, but it kind of is. But I woke up in a group of Cocaine Anonymous. And when I say I woke up, again, I'm not saying that for effect, although, you know, that's what it feels like. I woke up in 2007 in the West Country, Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, and you know, and I've been exposed to the big book before. I'd done a bit of CA before. You know, done a fair bit of CA actually before 2007. Mostly done NA, done a lot of AA, and don't ask me why, because I'm not an alcoholic, but I thought that's what you did. So, you know, so I went there because it's all the same, and it's a spiritual illness, and I've got, you know, and all whatever, you know. But so I woke up in this group of Cocaine Anonymous in Cheltenham in 2007. End of 2007, start of 2008, after picking up at the start of December, you know, and then I got whisked away, and you know, they told me something that I'd never really heard before, which was that the big book was used by a comparatively small, written, I should say, by a comparatively small group of people about a very definite condition. a definite condition. And the condition was described in there's a story of one of the main writer of the book, Bill's story, it's called, at the start of the book. And it's expanded upon in the first part of the book up to and including the third chapter, where it talks about a return to drinking. In my case, a return to cocaine and heroin, And that was what it was about. It wasn't about the reasons why I did it. It was about the lack of reason for me doing it again. They taught me that was my problem. My problem was I had a relapsing illness. I'm going to go on to it in a minute, but the book says bottles, liquor was but a symptom. That my relapses, my use of crack and heroin was just a symptom of something else. And, it's not everyone has that. Not everyone has it. Some people, and I think I might have been one of these people actually, early days, go to 12-step recovery or go to intervention because their life's gone to hell in a handcart, because of the amount of booze they're drinking and the amount of drugs they're spending. Their marriage is broken up as a result of that, and they spent all their money or whatever, and it's terrifying and it's horrible and it's very hard to stop. In my case, heroin's a good case in point. I take heroin for 3 or 4 days. I've got a habit. Same as what would happen to a lot of people. Does that make them a heroin addict? Well, I don't know. Society says so. The treatment centres that I went to say so. Big book calls them, paraphrasing the thing about heroin, but it calls them a heavy drinker. Given sufficient reason, they will stop or moderate. Same as I could do with my psychedelics, So they told me about all this stuff. I'd never been exposed to it. So in effect, I looked back and I thought, well, I found that I've been in situations, kind of treatment centres and 12-step fellowships and different meetings, different groups, including CA groups, where I was mixing in with a load of people that had a different issue to me. Now, I've learned that, amen to that. They're all welcome and we're all welcome. Because if you've got a problem, you're welcome, But if you have this relapsing problem, I believe you have a duty to be ready for the person who comes in who's like that. We've got a little group here in London. We meet, much as you like to do, but we meet at people's houses. There's not many of us, and we call it "What About Fred?" What about Fred? Because what we're saying is, we can be there for anyone that's, been mugging old ladies at the cash point with a syringe in their neck, or the person that's drunk themselves into stupidity. But we need to be there for someone who's like Fred. And for those of you who don't know about Fred, I asked Lenny about it afterwards, but that Fred's an example in the book, in chapter 3 of somebody who returns to drinking after spells of successful sobriety, So, I realised that, and I realised that, not everyone that gets drunk is an alcoholic, and not everyone that ends up in a treatment centre is a drug addict. Okay? If they say they are, they are. Okay? But in terms of the big book, which is what your little group's studying, it's not. It's not. We have to be mindful of those people because I believe it's progressive. Because, like I say, I think there was one time where I hadn't lost the power of choice, and it was a life problem I had. But I think at some point, I hear a lot of friends that go to IA, they talk about crossing an invisible line. I don't know whether there's any credence in that, but it seems to be that's what happens with some people. You maybe you do have the power of choice, but then after a certain point, you go back to it. You go back to your drug of no choice, your booze of no choice. And you find you can't stop, and then you wonder why, because you're doing the same things that you did before to try and stop. And that was my story. That's my story. My story is in 2007, I was exposed to something different than what I've been doing before. Someone pointed out to me in the chapter that I loved it because you're reading from it tonight, how it works. You'd think, well, that's how it works. It's important. Most important thing they showed me in how it works was some of us had tried to hang on to our old ideas. The answer was nil until we let go absolutely. I thought they meant let go of my bloody crack pipe. They didn't. They meant let go of my old ideas. See? And I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. So, let's just quickly look at the... how are we doing at the time, Lenny?
We are...
I know what the time is, but how am I doing for time? Have I got another 2 or 3 minutes?
You've got another 20 minutes if you want it.
Oh, God almighty.
No,
right.
We're at 15 minutes. You can go as far as 25 or 30.
Okay, listen, folks, if this goes wrong, blame Lenny, okay? He started it. So, in how it works, bottom of page 63, what have we been talking about? We've been talking about those of you that are new here, which I don't think anyone's brand new, are they? Is anyone brand new, Lenny?
No.
Okay. We've been talking about the step-free decision of actually trying to have this spiritual experience of turning our will and our life over to the care of a God that we do or don't have faith in, but we've become willing to believe that maybe we give it a go in step 2, and in step 3 we formally make that decision to turn our will and our life over. How do we turn our will and our life over? Well, not the way I did between 1995 and 2007, saying I wake up every morning and hand it over. I turn my will and my life over by looking at what that means. I mean, in the big book, when it gets to step 3, it says, there's the 3 permanent ideas, and it says being convinced of these 3 things, that you're an addict, can't manage your own life, probably no human power could have relieved your alcoholism, drug addiction, that God could and would if he was sought. It says being convinced, we're at step 3. But then it's got something really wonderful. It says, what do we mean by that? What do we do? I thought it was great. I did some sort of spiritual, on a few occasions, some step 3 prayers surrounded by sort of candles and all that, and but I'd never really looked at what it meant. Not really. It was as dramatic as I could make it, and sometimes I meant it as well. I meant it. When I looked at this step 3 statement, but it says, what do we do? What do we mean and what do we do by it? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Well, of course not. Not if I'm trying to hand my will and my life over to something else and I'm still employing self-will. See, that, I don't want to talk too much about the drinking and the using, because I say we're not really talking about that in this part of the program. But a good example of my old ideas and me organising my own life would be, I would go back to those meetings between 95 and 2007 and do exactly the same stuff, talk exactly the same stuff, and when it went wrong, I would come out with exactly the same explanation. I wasn't doing it enough. I wasn't really doing the deal. I wasn't praying right. I wasn't doing this right. I had the wrong sponsor, all this stuff, which was actually my ideas, and I'm told in 2007, let go of old ideas. I was full of old ideas. I was full of old ideas about how to pay the bloody gas bill, never mind about how to get clean and sober, and my old ideas never worked in my day-to-day living or in my relations with, family and girlfriends or in my relationship with cleaning up from drugs and alcohol. My old ideas never worked. So, being convinced that step 3, that I've decided to turn my will and my life over to God, I've got to start thinking about, well, okay, what's stopping me from trusting God around this stuff? What's stopping me from trusting God? I looked up in the previous chapter, we're agnostics, that, talks about the bedevilments of life. What's stopping me from trusting God around that? If I say I believe in God, how come I still have a problem with finance? How come I still have a problem being honest with my partner? Come on, Chris, you said you trust God. So, suddenly I'm exposed to these people. I'm exposed to this message from these people in a little CA group in Cheltenham saying, well, look, step 3. And I'm telling them all about my wonderful experience on Waterloo Bridge 4 years before, when I'm doing it, and there's a busker playing Waterloo Sunset, and I'm there with a sponsor who's knocked out by it, and I'm talking about when I go down to the steps of St Paul's and do it, and then, you know, and all that. And they said, well, no, hang on, what we're talking about here really is that any life that is run on, any life, not just yours, any life that's run self-rule can't be a success. Talks about me being an actor, which I guess is in you know, looking back, is kind of what I was being around recovery. Really, I felt if I appeared, you know, I was clean and sober, and I appeared to be doing the deal, you know, you would say, "There's a man with a message. He's doing all right," you know, and actually that's all that mattered to me, really, you know. But Step 3 doesn't say that. It says I've got to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. I don't know what God's will is for me. Okay? So I need to find out. It talks about all these problems that the actor has. He can be, you know, he can be doing really well, or, you know, he can mean well. He can really mean well, but actually behind it, it's just because he wants people to think well of him. Or he can be self-pitying, or he can be blaming other people. But, you know, the bottom line is I'm not turning my will and my life over to the care of anything else if I'm still trying to find out what I'm meant to do myself, okay? So, to get us up to the bit which you wanted me to share on, I do apologise for not getting to it, but, you know, we get up to the Step 3 prayer. For those of you who've got a book in front of you, I don't know if you have or not, but I mean, after the Step 3 prayer, it says, we've thought well, and by the way, is it a prayer? Is it a prayer, Step 3? And that's a rhetorical question. I still don't know. It just says, well, we're now at Step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understand him, God, I offer myself to you to bear with me, do with me as you will, relieve me in the burden of self that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those that would help of your power, your love, and your way of life. May I do your will always. Is that a prayer? I don't know, because straight away I'm thinking, well, you know, I didn't really understand what it meant to turn my will and my life over. Now they're telling me there's something in the way of that happening. So why have I just said this thing they call a prayer? Well, I like to think of it this way, and this is just, please, you can disregard this or not. I think that this Step 3 statement comes right before I do an inventory to find out what it is that's been blocking me from turning my will and my life over, from living life happily and successfully. When I do that, okay, when I successfully do that, then I can really look at the truth in this with the aid of another person, Step 5. I can really look at my lack of ability to do anything about it, and whether or not it's any good to me to hang on to it in Step 6, and in Step 7 become willing, really mean it, that I want God to take this away. Then I say this other thing, says, my Creator, I'm now willing that you have all of me, good and bad. And that ends with Amen. So maybe I like to think of it that Step 3 is the start of the process, and Step 7 is not the end of my process, but it's the end of that little prayer, if you like, if you will. So going back to the thing I'm meant to be sharing on, it says next we launch out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us have never attempted. Why would I? Though my decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in myself which have been blocking me from doing what it says. God, I offer myself to you. Okay, you can't do that, Chris. Why not? Because you don't know what it is. So that's it. I'm blocked off from actually fulfilling that statement. It says my liquor was but a symptom, my cocaine was but a symptom of my relapsing illness, my problem. That's a symptom. I'm blocked off from God. I'm always going to relapse. That's a symptom. I'm restless, irritable, discontent, if you like. You know, keeps showing up. Well, you know, if you were relying on God, you wouldn't be. You know, I don't trust other people with my welfare. Why not? Oh, well, I trust God. Okay, well, trust these people. Difficult, really difficult. It says we had to get, our liquor was but a symptom, we had to get down to causes and conditions. Causes and conditions of what had been blocking me. Okay, of what had been blocking me. Some of you will know, I mean, and Lenny will correct me if I'm wrong, but some of you will know that the thrust of a lot of this stuff comes from actually I'm one of them, but it was one or two guys back in Bristol that were looking at this stuff. One of them looked at it for a long time and developed some sort of bits and pieces that we pass around to each other. You know, there's a booklet and bits and pieces, you know, and you know, it makes sense to who it makes sense to. Let's put it that way. Do you know, I don't think there's any mileage, any use, and I'm told that the only way I can keep and maintain a spiritual experience is with constant thoughts and developing ways I can help other people. In other words, doing God's will, fulfilling that step 3 statement, that step 7 statement. I'm now willing you have it all of me. And that's I have to develop that and see how I can be of use. But in my case, that means developing how I can help the real addict, the real alcoholic, or the person who's a potential on their way. So that's why it's important. You know, this is not a competition. It's not. It's really not. But it's important we know it. And you know, we need to know it, because when Fred turns up, the likes of Fred, you know. I'll just give you one last thing, and I'm not going to talk any more after that, because, you know, I think this is more about doing stuff and discussing it amongst yourselves that you're close to each other. I can give you my experience, and my experience is this. I kept relapsing until 2007. I don't know if I've finished relapsing. I just know it hasn't happened since then. But what I've been doing since 2007 and now that's different than what I did before then is constantly looking at this stuff. Constantly looking how I can not better myself, but better my effectiveness, in not just with addicts and alcoholics, but in my life, in my family life, in my friends, and, you know, but particularly, you know, around people with the same relapsing illness that I did. Because, you know, you might be the only shot they've got. Do you know what I mean? You might be the only shot they've got. And this is why I believe it works. It's because of one simple thing. I'm no big, trust me, I'm no big religious person. I believe I have a spiritual strength and belief, whatever that means, you know. And the God, as I do and don't understand, seems to work, seems to come into play. Work's the wrong word. I just think it just is. I think it's like, you can use a word like an expression like common sense. Common sense comes in when I remove myself. Okay? So the God of my understanding, the person that stops me relapsing, not the person, the energy that stops me relapsing, the thing that says, just say no, Chris, the thing that stops me putting my hand on a hot stove, the thing that stops me turning what is a mere trivial thought about having a little cheeky use and no one to know, you know, which is a complete mad thought, because it's never been my case. The thing that stops will only come in when I am completely out of the equation. I have to remove myself from that debate about what to do next, what strategy to employ. Okay, including my motives for going to meetings, including my motives for whether or not I want the man or the woman, the potential sponsor, to like me, including for how I look or how I fit, you know. I need to be doing this for one simple reason: to see how I can best be effective and explain it. I'm not very good at explaining this. I'm pretty good one-on-one. You know, there's There's a hat for everyone to wear in this fellowship. You know, there's a nut for every screw, my mate says. But I don't know what it means like that. But I'm pretty good. You know, with someone one-on-one and getting to the bottom of his story or her story. You know, some people are good with groups. Some people are good at writing stuff. But the thing we have to have in common is our motive. I used to get very angry about this and shouting and say, oh, you're wrong. No, hang on, let's look at this again. No. Now, what does it really mean? Look, you know, most people that I've met anyway that are like me have gone through the same, you know, course of misinformation or course of, you know, going down blind alleys, trying different things. But actually, it's a pretty far out solution to a pretty messed up problem. Because what it's saying is a bit like, I don't know, a bit like when you cut yourself, you know. If you leave it alone, it will heal. If you keep picking it, it won't. And it's pretty much the same with recovery from drug addiction and alcoholism. I need to get out of the way. I don't mean just do nothing, because there's something I have to do. I have to enlist the power of the universe, the power of a God of my understanding. But I'm not going to do that through working it out. What I have to do is look at what it would have me do. I've found that through the program. The program has allowed me to get myself out of the way and find out what I'm supposed to be doing. It doesn't sort of, I don't do this to give me strength not to use, you know. But I do it to connect me to a power that does. Do you know what I mean? But again, that's it's to do with motives and stuff, you know. If this has got a bit complex, forgive me. If there's not enough, forgive me. If it's annoyed anyone, really forgive me. But it's very difficult sitting at my table in my kitchen in Sheffield. But yeah, I'll leave it on this really. That little bit is like so much of the big book has been misunderstood. We've got to remember when this book was thrust on the world, there weren't meetings there. It plopped through people's doors, and any initial drafts, it was very different than what it is now, you know. And then, you know, along the way, you know, AA got very big very quick, and a load of people, World War II happened, for God's sake, you know. A lot of people were you know, attracted to it, somewhere that could sort out their problems, and those problems could possibly include drinking, you know. So there's a lot of people, and you know, out of all those people, the vast majority of the ones that have found relief from their life problem ended up hanging around because it's great, it's attractive, it's nice, you know. So they're doing that, and then in the 12 and 12 comes out and it starts talking about different things. Bill's only a man, you know. He jumps in bed with the you know, the psychiatric people and all that in America, Tyburn, all them. And then come the 50s, the Jimmy K comes along and it starts off NA, and you know, they use the big book with Bill's blessing, and so they're copying an AA that's already changed, yeah. And then guess what? Somewhere down the line, they chuck that out and get in some copywriters and bring out their text, which is all along the line. There's the industry, the recovery industry, and psychiatric industry, and that. So it's all got a bit this and that, and here and there, you know. And then you know, CA comes along in the 80s, doesn't it? And I wasn't there, I don't know, but it's a bunch of people that realise this ain't going on in the big book, but like everyone else, it goes up and down and in and out of strength and gravity. So all we can do really is be honest about our own condition. Is to be honest about whether or not we believe that is us, you know, if it's describing us. And if we do, then we've got work to do. We've got, as you so wonderfully put it in your group, what's it called? We realise we've got a bit of war fever, spiritual warfare going on. Not because we're going to argue with other people, but, you know, there are people that are going to depend on it. Do you know what I mean? I really went on this, Lenny. I always say this at the couple of meetings that I do go around here, and it's tough, you know, it really is tough to find meetings. You know, we've got a little group we meet, so we meet each other's houses and that, but when the new people come in, I hear them talking and I see them again, and I think they probably have lost a bear of choice, you know. I get them on their own, just like it tells us in the books. See your man or your woman alone. And I always say what was exactly the same thing that they told me in Cheltenham. You need to look at this and find out if this is you. If it is, you need to get on with it and get tied in with it and join in. And I said, well, yeah, I want to. But they said, no, really, that's imperative. I said, will that keep me clean? I said, it might. But the bottom line is there's someone on their way here now. And we don't know what they look like, how old they are, what their name is. But when they arrive, they won't listen to him, but they will listen to you. You know, there's a nut for every screw. And that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. You know, unless a mad sod like me put in the book apart, I suppose. But I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.